Hello, kittens.
Hello, everyone.
Generate.
Hello.
All right, we are here once again with Lurpa Strike and special guest today, Prester John. He does the Xanadu review and Golden Horde something or other. I named this stream Crosswords and the Golden Horde, not knowing what Golden Horde means. So, Prester John, tell us what the fuck you do and what the Golden Horde is.
Sure. The Golden Horde was what Genghis Khan called his army, and I won't go into the whole backstory of why I called myself that. My most recent piece kind of goes over it. What did I call it? The vibe shift and the hollow victory of the heterodox moment.
Okay.
Very good piece.
Yeah, thank you. I just kind of came up with it on a lark for the most part. But yeah, I do write dispatches from the Golden Horde, which kind of goes from like politics, culture, history, kind of just whatever random thing comes to my head. I wish there was a more consistent theme. And the Xanadu Review is my podcast, and I'm just interviewing different people from Substack. And again, that just kind of runs the gamut of the different interests that I have. And yeah, I've had Lurpa on in the past. She's been on two, one so far of the digression sessions, which are like a panel show, and one that's being released either tomorrow or Wednesday, depending on when I can get it uploaded. And I'll be talking to Steven and having him on in the very near future. So look out for that, fans of Steven.
Looking forward.
That's my word.
Yeah, fantastic. Okay, well, so the way this goes, we are doing the Monday New York Times crossword. We tried doing Sunday last week. That ended up taking up too much time and being too much work. And so we are doing Mondays. So big spoiler. This is Mondays, not Sundays. New York Times crossword. You are all welcome to follow along. And so we will do the
Help
crossword.
us out in the comments.
Oh yeah, go ahead. Someone can write that in the comments periodically that we're doing Monday's crossword, because people. I have recently discovered people take their crosswords fucking seriously.
Yes, we do.
So we will do the crossword with your help. So we are not allowed to look up answers, but you, dear viewers, are allowed to help us. And then once we're done with the crossword, we will chit chat for a bit and have a chill hangout. So, Lurpa, take it away.
Yes. All right, let's get started. Okay, 1A, one across. 5 letters. Wood for a model airplane.
Balsa?
Yes, that's exactly what it is. Balsa wood.
B-O-L-S-A?
I was going to say
B-A-L.
Full disclosure, I am really bad at spelling and dyslexic, so I'll maybe be here for moral support. I'm guessing on both.
Well, I'm an excellent speller. You got the history, and Steven's got the rest. So we're going to be a good team.
Okay, so that was B-U-L-S-A?
I think B-A-L-S-A?
Yep. A is the second letter.
Got it. Okay. Beautiful.
And then 6 across. We'll just go from top to bottom. Jedi's foe in Star Wars films.
Sith.
Yeah, beat me to it.
What'd you say? Sith. Of course. I saw the movie once, like 20 years ago.
By the way, pause everyone real fast. Just if anyone in the chat, if you are having issues hearing us, please just send up a flare. If we're getting connection issues or you can't hear us talking, just let us know in the chat and we'll try to fix it.
Yes.
Okay, 10 across. Items in an Easter hunt. Eggs.
Indeed.
Feels like this one's easier than last week.
Oh, it is. Yeah, Monday. So
brutal.
Yeah, that one was really hard. So it goes in order of like each day. Monday is the easiest, and it gets progressively harder until Saturday is the hardest. And then Sunday is the biggest puzzle, but it's Wednesday level difficulty.
Okay.
So 14 across is Seal the Deal. Now, I don't know that off the top of my head, so I'm just going to see what one down might be to see if I can get a clue about what the first letter is. And it says Tweety.
Or Woody the woodpecker.
I would say that's a bird.
That's a bird.
So then going back to 14 across. Hi, Ancient Problems. That is Seal the
And
Deal.
Bo joined as well. What's up, guys?
Oh, sweet. Hey, Bo. I can't see anybody except for the first or the last person.
The
So hi,
tiny
everyone
little
else as well.
notification.
Yeah. Seal the Deal. I don't know what that one's going to be yet. What's 2 down? Berry often used in smoothies. This one is almost always that one, acai or whatever. That berry that is supposed to be like the superfood.
You know, I've had like the acai, whatever it is, like the supplements and stuff. I don't think I've ever had just the berry.
Yeah, me neither. I have no idea what it tastes like. I'm to think
I
of it.
imagine.
At my
Do
grocery
you?
store. I should know. I should try it.
You
I
should.
feel like it would taste like a more like dank blueberry. If that makes sense.
I feel like it would be
Like
tart.
more rich. I don't know.
Has anyone in the chat ever tasted one of these berries by themselves? I'm curious if anyone can describe the flavor to us. Let's see. 3 down, because I still don't know 14 across. It says storks have long ones, and I'm going to guess that that's legs.
Legs.
That makes sense.
See, this is nice and chill. The last week I was having to think. I was having to
Very
work.
stressful.
Yeah,
You guys thought I was gaslighting you with the Doge thing.
we
Yep.
did. But it was such a joke. I was like, no way. What a goofy guy.
Left Brain Mystic says, I had acai berry juice. Good, bad? Indeed tart. Okay.
Tart, excellent. I'm glad that.
Oh,
Not
hello,
dank.
Left Brain Mystic. By the way, what's so awesome about this is so many people show up in chat who are
Mhm.
excellent writers.
Yeah,
Like just
Indeed.
seeing so many people join who are like fantastic writers who I enjoy reading.
Mhm.
Very
It's
cool.
always such an honor. Like, yay.
Okay, where are we?
Where are we? All right, I'm looking at 4 down.
Hmm.
Summation symbol in math. It's 5 letters and it starts with S.
Mm,
Summation symbol. I mean, I would assume. See, I would have thought like the plus sign. No. Yeah.
summation as in to sum up.
Yeah. So would that be?
Math is not my strong suit.
Me neither.
Same.
This is a literature type of stream, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Surely there are some math nerds though. We need David, who's a math writer, to come in and tell us what it is.
Yes. Well,
The
let's
first letter
see.
was S, was it?
It is S. Yes. 5 letters starts with S.
I don't know. We might have to come back to that one.
Yeah. Let's come back to it. All right. 5 down. This is a 6-letter word. Starts with A. First stringers. I want to say, because it's plural, that it's going to be A teams. Although that's kind of a weird.
What does that have to do with first stringers?
Like in an
Like
orchestra?
in sports. Oh.
I thought music when I first.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's when I hear first string, like.
No, that makes sense. I think I'm just thinking of. Yeah, I don't remember.
Oh.
Well.
17 across. Redhead introduced in 1918.
Raggedy Ann.
Yes.
Raggedy Ann.
Raggedyanne, right?
No, there's 2 G's and no E at the end of Ann.
2 G's. Raggedy Ann. There we go.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that gives us something with 4 down and 5 down.
Yeah.
20
down.
across.
Consternation. And it's 6 letters, DIS. Is dismay a synonym of consternation?
Yeah.
I think so.
Dismay.
And that would mean a Y is after that D and 18 down. Oh, yeah, that makes sense. Coloring as the hair. So 18 down starts with DY. It would be dying. DYEING. Figure
Nice.
since we're there. We just checked our work. Oh, summation symbol in math, 4 down. Now that we've got the G and the M, I think that's sigma.
Yes.
Makes sense.
I don't know what a sigma is or does, but I think it's sigma.
Sigma
Hi,
does
Charles.
whatever the fuck he wants. Have you not seen the meme?
You know what? I stopped learning the difference once we got alpha and we got beta, and then I don't know what the rest mean. Like I'm out of the loop in how we're rating men now. I mean, I guess I shouldn't be rating.
I think A, that's your whole thing, right?
I know, right? I gotta learn.
But I think sigma means it's like not like the other girls, but for men.
Oh, really? That's
It's
hilarious.
like I could be an alpha, but I'm not a follower, so I'm a sigma.
That's amazing.
There are so many incredible YouTube videos about sigma males that
Really?
are just deliciously, delectably unironic.
Yeah. Well, that's one of those things where it started out as a very like unironic thing, and then it became a joke, and then it like looped back around where people were taking the irony seriously. I don't know if it's taking the irony seriously or a nod and a wink, but many sigma male grind set edits that I've seen.
Yeah, it's hilarious and wonderful, and I hope they never stop because they entertain me at 3 a.m. when I can't sleep.
I'm gonna have to go on a rabbit hole YouTubing adventure tonight and see this.
I wish that I could share my screen on here and like on OBS so that we could watch some Sigma grind set videos together.
Yeah,
it'd be amazing.
The Substack Live feature seems like it's still in its infancy. Sigma Lacrum, that's beautiful Atlantean baller. This guy has just such underrated heaters. That's so funny and clever. LOL. Just an MBTI shill out here, but I don't know the other famous typologies. Yeah, me neither.
Yeah, I only know mine, but I know it's the protagonist. I keep forgetting ENTJ or something, ENFJ, something like that. Okay, I think 14 across is ice it. Seal the deal is to ice it.
Oh.
Which is not a term I'm familiar with, but if you look at 5 down again, it does look like it might be A teams because of the E and the A.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Even if it doesn't quite make sense.
Do we want to do 6 down?
Yeah, what do we got?
Pigs digs.
It's 3 letters, S blank Y.
Pigs digs? Like a sty? Pig sty?
Yeah, exactly, sty.
Pigs digs, that sounds cool. I feel like that if anybody doesn't have a newsletter yet, that's a free one.
Pigs digs, right. If anyone needs a title, free.
That reminds me. I was reading a book called On the Farm last year by Stevie, can't remember her last name, but it's about the Picton brothers, the pig farmers who like raped and slaughtered women and butchered them like pigs on their farm. They were pig farmers.
Oh my God.
Sorry.
That sentence did not end the way that I thought it was going to.
No, not at all. I thought this was going to be like a wholesome.
Jesus Christ.
Well, so they had a club called Piggy's Palace. And so they had this horrific nightclub called Piggy's Palace, and that's what Pigs Digs makes me think of. Anyway,
I got that.
That's
6 down is sty.
That's my horrific free association anecdote for you.
That's what the
Thank you. I hope you provide more.
Okay.
All right. 7 down. Tehran resident. That would be an Irani. Irani. And,
yeah.
Is it Irani or Iranian? I don't think I've ever heard somebody say Irani.
Well, it's only 5 letters, so but yeah, you're right. I wonder if that's one of those things like I used to say Somalian, but you're supposed to say Somali when referring to the person. So, and I think maybe it's one of those situations. Like items could be Iranian, but people can be Irani. I'm not sure. I'll have to look that up. Curious. 8 down. Ancient Greek garment.
Toga.
I thought it would be a toga, but it's 5 letters and the middle letter is N. So it's T blank N blank blank.
Tunic.
And I'm wondering, yeah, tunic.
Is it? I guess I always think of tunic as like medieval, but I guess
Yeah,
I
me
don't know.
too.
I never really thought about it.
And usually when they clue something like that, it is a toga.
Mm-hmm.
So it's strange. Oh yeah, I think it is tunic because 15 across is the T of T/F. And that would be true. And we've already got TRU. So 15 across is true.
Oh, got it. Okay. 9 down?
9 down. Reddish brown coloring. And we've got HEN.
How many?
5 letters.
Where is it?
Henna.
It is 9 down.
Oh.
Henna.
Yeah, henna. I thought it was a method, not a color, but
That's what I thought too.
like a henna tattoo.
Yeah.
It's
I mean, I guess they
knew
are
somebody
typically
else.
the same color.
Yeah, apparently, like it's very rare, but you can be allergic to henna. And I knew somebody who got it done. Like it ended up scarring her skin, so it looked cool. It was like
Oh.
ritualistic scarring. If that's something to the chat, if you ever want to get henna done, make sure you're not allergic.
Yeah, ouch. Oh my goodness. All right, 10 down. Recede as the tide. That would be ebb.
Ebb?
Yeah.
Yep.
$11 down. Great to know in quotations.
Do we have any other letter clues?
It's good to know.
We only have G. And yeah, I think it's also good to, yeah, so I think it's good to hear. So like it says great to know.
Good to hear.
I'm guessing it's going to be that, but that's a lot of blank letters.
Yeah.
It could also be good to know.
You know what? I think, well, the reason it wouldn't be good to know is because the word no is in the clue. And so they have a rule that they won't have the same word in both the clue and the answer.
Got it.
If we look at 16 across, though, it says meh. And I'm thinking that's going to be blah. So that would actually change what 11 down could be. It could be glad.
Yeah, glad to hear.
Yeah, because 19 across is Crimson Tide School informally. I'm pretty sure that's Bama, right? Or Bama. Bama. How do they say it?
Bama.
Bama.
As an Allah.
Yes, as an ally.
Bama.
Yeah, Bama it is. Oh, and 23 across is morning droplets, and it's 3 letters. And so I'm going to guess that's dew. Yeah.
Dew. Yep.
I say we go for 12 and 13 down since they're almost done. 12 down, PlayStation Pro example.
Jarlis says, fucking hell, Pacific Northwest and serial killers. David Lynch was over the target with Twin Peaks. Yes, he was. Also, R.I.P.
Yes.
Yeah, R.I.P. I still haven't actually seen that show.
It's good.
Speaking of which, so one of the coolest things about working with the public is that you get to meet really wild people. One of my regular customers built the sets for both seasons of Twin Peaks.
Wow.
And Wild at Heart. And so he's a great guy. He's like this old zany carpenter. He is exactly the type of person you would expect to build the sets for David Lynch.
Like a David Lynch character?
Yes, he is a David Lynch character. He is exactly as weird as you would want a David Lynch set builder to be. And he regaled me with all of these stories about David Lynch.
Oh, that's so cool.
It was very cool. Okay.
Sorry, so a quick question though. You said Zickney? What is that? Did I mishear you? About the guy is a Zickney? What was that? Or did I just...
might have misheard.
Okay, never mind. I thought that was some sort of regional slang I hadn't heard.
Who
disregard?
Telling, maybe. Maybe people in the chat can tell us if they heard me say the same thing.
Oh.
12 down. PlayStation Pro example, like for an example. And we've already got games, so would that be like gamer or games? Gamed? Oh,
Not a-
gamer. Like pro means, for some reason I thought this was like a professional version of the PlayStation.
I thought that was like one of their products. I'm not really a gamer myself, so
Yeah, that's what I would have thought, but I think it would have been a capitalized P for pro if it were.
yeah.
So my guess is that's going to be gamer. They're probably talking about a gaming professional.
Okay, well, that will make 13 difficult because that's a shawl.
It is.
So
What is 20? Wait, which one difficult? 24 across?
it will make 24 across difficult. 18-inch figure introduced in 1986. American Girl.
Oh wow.
Yes. Okay. Good one. The
American
doll.
means glad, which means 11 down needs to be redone.
Redone.
What was it?
So 11 down right now. It's great to know is the clue. And right now we've got glad, I, and then 5 blank letters.
Mhm.
Great to know. Glad I. Well, what's 31 across? Let's see what that last letter could be. Does anyone know Shelley's blank skylark? And it's 3 letters. Shelley's. Is that like Mary Shelley? Is that a book?
I know that's a writer. What did she write? I don't know.
Frankenstein, I thought, but I don't know anything else, right? By her. PS Pro could be console. Sherman Alexi's here. Hi, Sherman.
Hi, Sherman.
Let's see. Shelley's blank skylark. Well, okay, I know what 21 across is. Let's get that one filled out. That one is Companionship of the Pinta and Santa Maria. So that's Nina, right? So that's an A.
Yeah.
Which means that 22 down, Shenanigan, would be Antic.
And by the way, let's pause real fast.
Yes.
To let everyone who's just joined know we are doing Monday morning's New York Times crossword, so you can all follow along. And we are here with Prester John and Lerpa Strike and myself. We are hanging out, doing the crossword, and just chilling on Sunday night. Thank you for joining. All right.
And please feel free to help us in the chat with any answers we might be stuck on.
It's much appreciated.
Mm-hmm. All right. Where are we at? Why don't we start? Let's go to 27 across. That one is Blank Doubtfire. I think we all know that one. Yeah. I just rewatched that movie somewhat recently. It's still pretty funny.
Still holds up.
I mean, as much as it can, but it's pretty funny.
MRS, Mrs. Doubtfire?
Yes.
Yeah.
And then 30 across. One named singer with 2014 hit Chandelier. Middle initial or middle letter I.
Sia.
What'd you say? Sia?
Yep.
Is that S-I-A? I see her in Crosswords, but I've never actually heard her music, which I think is funny. I should listen to it because I know her from Crosswords more than I know her from real life or music life or whatever. All right. 31 across. Oh, that's back to Shelley's blank skylark. Could it be 2A skylark? Oh, maybe.
2A. Oh, well. But
yeah, okay. 26 down, if you look at that, to just double check that second letter. One favoring a black wardrobe. I think that would be goth.
Goth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the O is there.
Yeah, so 31 is 2. T-O. Wait.
So it could be 2A skylark.
2A. Okay.
Just fill that in, and if it's not, then we'll change it.
Yeah, which means 11 down is
Glad.
We will figure it out.
We will.
Shall we do 36 across?
Yeah, let's take a look at that one. Who's there? Reply. And it's 5 letters, starts with IT. I think it's going to be it's me.
It's me. Yeah.
We go to 39 across. Adoptable Playmate, introduced in 1982. So this is all about the theme, it appears, is various dolls.
Cabbage Patch?
I bet you're
Yeah.
right.
That is, I'm pretty
Cabbage
sure.
Patch Kid. Heck yeah, I had one of those.
It was a little before my time.
Cabbage Patch Kid.
Perfect. All right, 32 across. Debtor's Note. I believe that's going to be an IOU. It's very common in the crossword world.
IOUs?
Yeah. When they say something about debtor. And I think that 27 down, mineral with thin sheets is mica. So I think that
Mica?
I makes sense there. Yeah. Like they have mica powder. It's basically like eyeshadow, but it comes from some other
with mineral with thin sheets, mica.
Mm-hmm. And then if we go to, sorry.
No, go for it.
Okay, 28 down is rowdy crowd sound. We've got ROA. I'm going to guess that's, yeah.
As in the roar of?
The roar of a crowd. 29 down is
sub sandwich.
Sub something. It looks like what 11 or 10 letters, foot long sandwiches. So sub the subway. No.
How many letters total?
10. No, 9. No, 10. God.
Submarine? Like submarine sandwich?
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
And they're sandwiches, so yeah, it'll be an S at the end. Mm-hmm. Perfect. All right.
Oh, 11 down.
Yes. Oh, glad I asked.
Glad I asked.
Wonderful. Yeah. Oh, 25 down. Sorry, now we're all over the place. We're doing that thing. We started out so organized, but that's okay. 25 down, competed in a marathon, say. I believe that's going to be raced now that we've got the R and the A and the E in there.
Yep.
So raced. Did you guys know the Super Bowl's on?
I didn't until yesterday. I was like, because I went to the grocery store yesterday and it was a madhouse. What the fuck's going on? And then, because I'm so not that type of guy, I literally didn't know the Super Bowl was happening.
Yeah.
And I was like, maybe is this a bad time to do it? And then I realized, like, I feel like none of our audiences skew sports fans.
Yep.
So
I had the exact same train of thought today. I was like, oh shit, we're competing with the Super Bowl. I'm like, no, we're not. We're actually not, are we? Because I literally just learned myself this morning and I thought it was tomorrow because I guess I thought it was Saturday today. I don't know. Today was a weird day.
It's been one of those weeks. Is your husband a sports guy, Lerpa?
Not at all. No, not even a little bit. I watched exactly one game out here because the Vikings were in it, and it was shortly after we moved from Minnesota to Virginia, and the Vikings were playing. The Super Bowl was held in Minneapolis that year. I think it was 2017 or 18. It was 2018, and they had just beaten New Orleans, and it was like at the last second of the game, and I don't even know what happened because I don't understand that game at all. But I got excited because I was like, Minnesota finally did a good thing, and so I made Alan. I made him watch the football game with me, and he was like, "Oh my god, fucking shoot me!" And he hated the whole experience, and we've never done it since.
My own heart.
Yeah.
We have to appreciate Bo for saying, "I'm watching the Super Bowl with an earbud in, listening to y'all multitasking."
That's awesome, Bo. I'm honored. Can't see the comments. Well, I can see a few. That's it.
Yeah.
We love you, Bo.
Yes,
So,
we love you,
Thank
Bo.
you, Bo.
I think if you touch the screen right where the chat is, it will expand.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Oh, now I can actually. I see.
Yay!
Thanks for helping Boom
I
Alerpa
need
here.
some need some work. We're getting there. If Chris Best, what's the other guys? Chris Best, Hamish McKenzie, and what's the third guy?
Never remember.
The mustache guy.
The Trinity. I just call them the
Yeah.
the Trinity
Poor
that gave
them.
birth. We all crawled out of their slimy womb.
Metaphorical. Yeah.
They,
It's good, man. Mills. Yeah. Thank you, Atlantean Ballroom. Mills Baker. Yeah. Fun story about that. Like when I first joined Substack, I didn't know he was the CEO, and there was like somebody posted. I think it was somebody else, one of the other guys, like posted like a Photoshop to make them look like Mills Baker, and he has that very specific look. I was like, yeah, you kind of nailed that like aging millennial refusing to grow up look, and I was like, yeah, you got me. I didn't even know he was the CEO of Substack. So like, I accidentally roasted the CEO, like my first encounter with him. So. But he
Nice work.
follows me, so he didn't take it personally, I guess.
beautiful.
All right, let's look at 33 across. That is long-running police drama, and we've got NC. So NCIS. I think so. All right. Next, 43 across. Knight's Protection. And we've got ARM with 2 more letters. Armor. I believe it is.
I'm so 43 across. Got it.
43. Did I say 33?
Not the British spelling, I suppose.
Probably not.
Armor.
44 across. We've got input for an AI model. The topic of the year. I'm going to say that's data, right? Because it starts with a D, because we've got raced for 25 down. So 4 letters starts with a D. I'd say data.
Jesus. That has to be like the dawn of a new era when AI gets into a crossword.
Yeah. Or makes them.
Yeah, or makes them. Oh my goodness. I wonder. No, they usually have biographies in the blogs of these things about the crossword authors who make them. Once the New York Times starts doing AI crosswords, I won't be able to do it. I just can't. Man. All right, 45 across, where Z is in the alphabet.
And
I'm guessing, yeah. And indeed. 46 across, quantity, an abbreviation. I'm going to guess
QTY?
it starts with an A because we have submarines going down. So I'm guessing it's going to be AMT for amount instead of quantity.
Sense.
Yeah.
Is there I just realized I'm not looking at like a web page for this. I'm kind of going off the dome. Are you guys looking at the website?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I should probably be doing that.
No, you're fine.
Oh, you're not kidding. Will Shorts would self-immolate if AI did the crossword. You're so right. Oh, man.
That's funny.
God, if he ever showed up on here, I would die. That'd be amazing. 47 across, Chicago High Rails. So they spell this differently in every crossword. This is a common answer. It's going to be L's, but spelled ELS. I don't know, is anyone in here from Chicago? I know Teresa is, but I don't know if Teresa's here. I'm wondering, do you actually spell the L like that? I know it's elevated, so maybe you do actually spell it with an E, but I always imagine it when people say the L, I just literally imagine the letter L. So maybe that's just silly of me.
I'm trying to think. I feel like there's one more prominent Chicago short substacker. What's his face? Briffing Glue.
Oh, it's
I
just
think
the
he's
L.
from Chicago.
Thank you, Atlantean. It's just the L.
It's just the LEL.
Wow.
So ELS.
Good to know.
Chicago.
I still haven't seen the bean. Gotta see it someday. All right, 49 across. Home project initials begins with D, 3 letters. DIY.
Oh, there you go. That's fine.
All right. And we've got 50 across. We are more than halfway done.
Nice.
Fashionable pair introduced in 1959 and 1961, respectively. Ooh, I bet this is Barbie and Ken. But no, it couldn't.
Hmm.
Oh,
Barbie.
no, it is.
Is it just like, does it actually have her last name?
Barbie.
Like, I feel like it's Johnson.
Does
Yeah.
Barbie have a last name
Yeah.
for Barbie
think-
lore people?
I think that the creator of Barbie, like her name is actually Barbie, or it's Barbara or something like that. So I thought maybe it was referring to her actual name, but I don't think that really makes sense.
So Barbie came out first, and then Ken came out later. So
Ooh, I
Barbie.
bet that.
Sorry,
You
go
know
on.
what? Oh, I'm sorry. I interrupted you, but I think 50 across is literally just Barbie and Ken.
Yes.
It's enough
Yeah.
letters. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hold on, I
Is
need
that
to
what-
let a cat in.
Okay.
Are we
First
doing
cat
the
sighting.
parade of pets?
Yes.
I'm debating
Well, I
on
have my
doing
door closed, so Hank can't join, but
I'm debating on doing a face
Everyone,
reveal
say,
and grabbing my chihuahuas. Aw.
say hello to the cat boy.
that one's
Okay.
Lilith, right?
I'm sorry.
I'm starting to learn.
She seems very unhappy.
Yeah. Hello.
Tell you what, I'm gonna use the restroom, grab a beverage refresh, and I'm gonna grab my dogs and I'll
Perfect.
dramatic face and/or dog reveal.
All
Continue
right.
with that.
You're grabbing all the things. Okay.
All right. So 56 across, kimono sash, blank, blank, I, 3 letters. I do not
Kimono.
have any idea. Do we have anybody with Japanese culture knowledge in the house? Kimono sash, blank, blank, I.
I'm just going to post a little note. Doing Mondays crossword. Yeah. Just so you crossword fanatics won't get big mad at us spoiling it.
Monday's crossword.
We are we are over halfway through, about 2/3 of the way through Monday's crossword.
We're almost done. So I have just jumped randomly to 41 down because there was only one letter left. So I think we can solve it. It's band leader Shaw. I think it's Artie with an E at the end.
Tommy Shaw?
Artie. Huh?
Band leader Shaw?
Yes, band leader Shaw.
What are the other?
Which one was that?
41 down.
Art. What was it? Art.
Artie, like Artie. Yeah.
Got it.
Like a nickname for Arthur,
Got
I
it.
assume.
All right. Dramatic face reveal and dogs.
Puppies and PJ.
Oh my
Aw.
So we
goodness.
got Kale and Mojo.
Oh, they're adorable.
Yeah, they're
Hey,
they're very
puppers.
friendly.
They don't even look scared.
No, they're Chihuahuas get kind of a bad rap, and I think rightly so. But pretty much everybody who's met them in real life will say, they're very sweet dogs.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Oh, they look like sweethearts.
Yeah,
Very cute.
they're
Little
kind of
dog.
elderly. What was
Oh,
that?
I see the one on your left is a little gray. What a cutie pie.
Yeah, they're both kind of old, but they're very well behaved.
Aw.
They're all decently behaved for. Yeah, they're kind of little fits, but we love them.
Yeah, you gotta.
Very cute.
Off you go, boys.
57 across is light beige, and it's 4 letters, starts with E. I think that this is a crew, which I almost want to Google, but I can't.
How do you spell that?
It is ECRU.
A crew.
Oh yeah, it's not my forte. Oh jeez.
Let's see. 58 across is 6 letters. We don't have any of them yet. and the clue is low introductory rate. Example.
Low introductory rate?
Mm-hmm.
What are some of the other letters?
We don't have any yet. However, I think we can, because 42 down, the clue is communicate with, and so far we have talk and 2 more letters following it. So I think it's talk to, communicate with, talk to.
Yep.
So then that would mean that 58 across, low introductory rate, would start with a T. Okay, 48 down is kind of funny to get another letter for 58 across. The clue is like some watermelons and tournament entrance. And it starts with SE and it's 6 letters. I think it's seeded. Yeah.
Wait, seeded tournaments? I don't get it.
I don't really understand how like fantasy football and stuff like that works, but maybe someone in the no, if you're in this chat, you don't care about sports, but unless you're Bo, maybe Bo can explain seeding to us.
Bo's our resident jock.
He is. But yeah, I've seen it in other crosswords. That's the thing about crosswords is that some of the knowledge is a little circular, and you eventually just like remember some of the words that they use based on the clues.
Supermodel Campbell is 55 down.
Ooh, Naomi. It's some 90s knowledge. Naomi Campbell.
How do you, is that NAO?
Yes, MI.
AI.
Got it.
Right. So 58 across, low introductory rate. We've got so far T, TEA, and 3 blank letters. We're doing, yes, Monday's crossword.
TEA, 3 more letters?
Yeah. I just don't know.
No. Yeah, I'm not a finance guy. I couldn't tell you.
How about 62 across? PlayStation Maker. There's already an N in there as the 3rd letter, so I'm going to go with Sony.
Yep.
Ooh, 64 across. Classic Broadway musical about a New York City matchmaker, or how one might respond to the introductions of 17, 24, 39, and 50 across. If you're looking at it, those should all be highlighted. How one might respond.
American Girl, Cabbage Patch Kid, and Barbie and Ken. So guys and dolls.
Oh, wait.
That sounds right.
It sounds right, but there's not enough letters for it. I mean, there's enough for dolls at the end, but there's not enough for guys and.
What about guys in dolls?
I don't think that's a real one.
Okay.
Musical theater is not my forte.
Musical, yeah, I feel like my mom watched that one a million times and I should know it. Let's try to fill in some of the other blanks on that one.
No,
53 down.
Well,
Sorry. If we look at 53 down, it says big concert venue.
I'm pulling from my collective gay hive mind.
Yes. Oh, for the theater. Yes.
For musical,
we need to do that.
Drawing.
Classic. We've got to have somebody in here. From classic Broadway musical. About a New York City matchmaker, or how one might respond to the introductions of the highlighted ones, which I bet the end is Dolly. I mean,
hello, Dolly.
Hello, Dolly. Of course. See, I didn't know that was about a matchmaker. Actually, I don't know what it's about at all. I just thought it was.
Hello.
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay.
All right, 52 down. We've got most of ECH, and it's Amazon smart speakers, and I've got one, and they are called Echoes.
You got it.
52, which one was this?
52 down.
52 down. Echo.
And then 53 down. We have got big concert venue, and the first 3 letters are filled in, A-R-E, and we have 2 left. Now I think it's going to, yeah. Arena.
Makes
50,
void.
Makes void, annuls.
Nulls.
Unlikely as odds.
Unlikely as odds.
Yeah.
Do we have any? How many letters?
It's 4 letters. Second letter is an L. Cinema Tim Shell's here. All right, 4 letters. Unlikely as odds. Second letter L. I don't know. I'm going to tab over to 60 down. Palindromic Parisian periodical. Oh, it's going to be Elle, the fashion magazine. PJ will know this one.
Palindrome is something that's spelled that says the same word back to front.
Yeah, like race car. And
Right.
God, there's one about tacos. Taco cart, I think. I don't know. 61 down is some whiskeys. And the second letter is Y, and it's a 4-letter word.
Some whiskeys, rye.
Yeah.
R-H-Y-E.
R-Y-E-S.
I like a good rye whiskey sometimes.
I honestly don't know if I've had rye whiskey. I don't know. Oh, okay. So now 15 across, low introductory rate. I believe that's a teaser.
Bo says Taco Cat. I don't know.
Oh, Taco Cat. Yeah, you're right. It's Taco Cat. That's the one that's a palindrome. Taco Cat. I was thinking it was like taco something else.
Same back and forth. I get it.
Yeah. Well, I think that 58 across for the low introductory rate is going to be a teaser.
Yes.
Like a teaser rate.
Huh.
So oh, slim would be the odds. Unlikely as odds for 59 down.
Yes.
Odds are slim.
Yeah. All right. The first O of YOLO, this is 67 across. And we have ONL. So I'm going to guess that is going to be the only. You only live once.
Yep.
YOLO.
YOLO.
Let's
Cleanup target, 69 across. We've got 4 letters. Third letter is S. Cleanup target. I'm guessing it's going to be mess, but let's check the letters around it. 50 down is blank buddy, and it's B blank S blank blank. So I'm guessing that's bosom. BOSOM.
Oh, yeah. Bosom buddy.
And that would mean that 69 across starts with M, which makes it more likely that it's probably mess as the cleanup target.
Yep.
So I'm just going to fill that one in. 66 across. Your turn on a walkie-talkie.
Over.
Over. Ooh, we've only got 1 left, or 2, but a top.
Oh, did we ever do kimono sash?
I think that's the one, actually. 56 across. Yeah, so it's going to be Obi, because 51 down is a top, and I think that's going to be above.
That's right.
Oh, we still have another one.
Pee-wee Hermit. Yeah. Can't talk to Pee-wee Hermanetics joins. What's up, Pee-wee?
Pee-wee
70
Hermit.
across.
Great name.
Yeah. Pee-wee was one of the first people I followed on Substack just because of his name, and he turned out to be a great writer, but I was like, damn, that's so funny. It's so funny. So many of the people I followed initially when I started Substack were just like, your name is funny. That's good enough for me.
And it's even better when the funny name correlates with good writing.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, 70 across. Sass.
Yes, sass.
And
congratulations. You solved your puzzle.
We did it.
We did it. Congratulations,
We did
everyone.
it.
Cheers.
Amazing. Cheers.
Cheers.
Okay. Entertain the children real fast. I'll be right back.
Okay.
Lurpa, so do you like my dog?
I love your dog. Your dog's great.
Yeah.
Which one is he named again?
This is Kale.
Kale. Like with a
He's
K or a C?
K.
Like is he named after the leaf?
Presumably. We both of our dogs, I can grab the other one too. They're both from a shelter and Craigslist respectively. So we didn't name either of them, but I feel it kind of works for him because he's kind of fragile.
Yeah.
And Caleb Magoon says, Kale, yeah. And then this is Mojo, and he has Mojo. But, he's 13. He's like,
He's a little gray.
11. He used
They
to
look
be,
like
he's
bugs.
half Jack Russell Terrier. He's a Jack Russell Chihuahua mix. He used to be reddish brown, but they're kind of old now, so they're good dogs.
Good pups. I wish I had a dog, but my husband is allergic.
That's too
Much
bad.
more
We have,
allergic than to cats.
me and my wife are both allergic to cats. So
Oh yeah. Do you just do you have any of them or just dogs?
Just dogs. We're always on the look for a hyperallergenic, like at a shelter or something, but unsurprisingly, they don't come up for adoption very often. I thought for the longest, because I wanted to get a hairless, because believe it or not, I think hairless cats are kind of cute. I want
They're
to name
really
one Spiegel.
soft.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I pet one for the first time years ago, when I was working at a home IT service, and this guy's like, "Oh, here's my hairless cat," and it was the sweetest thing. It was very soft.
They're
But
so
as it turns
snuggly,
out,
aren't they?
yeah, well, as it turns out, if you're allergic to cat, it's the skin dander, not the hair itself. So it
Oh.
was not the big.
Cinema Tim Shaw says, I wonder if we can get some dogs and cats interacting through the internet here. Do they do that? That's a good question. Maybe
If a cat walks in,
round up some of my cats and
yeah, we could try. The Atlantean Ballers. Oh, let's read these. Let's do the streamer thing. I wonder. Oh, that's the one. And Atlantean Baller says, my girlfriend has a cat, and I can tolerate her place despite being allergic. It depends on the intensity IG. I don't know if that was a typo. Yeah. Oh,
I think
yeah.
it means I guess. Yeah. Yeah, I think because my husband's also allergic to cats, but he eventually gets used to the dander, so he's just willing to do it for the cats, but not the dogs, because I think the dogs are stronger.
I'm not I will be dying allergic. If I were to just put my face in it and sniff, it feels like if people are sanitary.
Yeah.
There you go. Got a black cat.
This is Wednesday.
Hello, Wednesday. Kale, say hi to Wednesday.
I just woke her up, so she's.
Is she gonna be crabby?
I'm surprised she's not clawing your face.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, I have 6 cats. I'm a crazy cat lady, and my husband has banned me from bringing home any more cats.
So only 1 to 2 more is what you're saying.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so Prester John, for people who aren't familiar with you, because I feel like people generally know who Lurka and I are if they've been coming to these Sunday night crossword things. So tell us some about who you are and what you do.
Sure. And I'll start by saying thank you so much for the invite. Me and Lurpa have been Substack friends for a little while. We've kind of joked in a chat the other day. We're kind of like Substack married. You have your work wife or your work husband, as we just we exist in a lot of the same spaces and stuff. But
we're in all the same Discords and the podcasts and
all that
stuff. We exist in the same.
Can we be a Substack polycule?
The 3 of us? Yeah,
let's do it.
Yeah, because I was aware of you, and then I saw that the other day, and I read a lot of your stuff, and that's why I reached out for you to have you on the podcast, since it seems like we have similar interests and outlooks on life. But as I said earlier, I write the dispatches from the Golden Horde, which is my blog, and it ranges from politics to culture to history, just kind of whatever my interests are, and believe it or not, I've never really written before this. So this last year when I started Substack, I wasn't. Well, a little bit, but that's maybe a story for later in the stream as far as fiction goes. But and then I did my podcast, which Lurpa was the inaugural guest, the Xanadu Review, and it's kind of the same thing. I just talk to people from Substack, and I try to have diverse guests on, and the sense of ideological diversity, and it could be people who I find interesting politically or culturally, or just kind of me and Lurpa, for example, we just kind of interacted enough. It's oh, you're from the Midwest, let's have a talk. So that's kind of my thing. I try to put out kind of maybe not even-handed. I try to see the big picture as much as is possible and write from that perspective. And as far as the podcast goes, just people I find interesting. And I mean, honestly, half of the reason I started a podcast is like, I don't know, I feel like anybody who does this, like in the back of your mind, like, yeah, I could do that. That's easy enough, right? And I just wanted to be able to have conversations with people who I find interesting. So that's kind of the long and short of it.
Amazing.
Works out well. And yeah, for anyone that just joined us too, PJ's most recent piece, The Vibe Shift and the Hollow Victory of the Heterodox Movement, is excellent. And yeah, apparently you said you just like threw it together, which is wild because that's just how it works, right? Everyone's most popular posts are like ones that you just kind of randomly came to mind.
Release the beast. My wife is on. They're going to try to play with her.
Yes.
Okay. I was about to ask him a question. Oh, he's back. Okay.
I'm back. I was just standing up to open the door.
Okay, no worries. So, John Prester, tell us the basic premise of your most recent article, because I remember reading it and thinking it was very interesting. So, walk us through what you were.
Sure. So the Cliff Notes version is so as a framing device, my my pseudonymous name is Prester John. It used to be Prester John's Revenge. I wrote because when I first started writing on Substack, I'm somebody who traditionally came from the left, but found myself very disappointed and frustrated with where the left was politically at the time when I first started writing. So the legend of Prester John was in like the 12th century, like in Christendom, they thought there was this legend of this Christian king in Africa named Prester John, and that they heard that he was basically like fucking up the Muslim world, and they were in conflict at the time, so they assumed he was Christian. And this may or may not be true as far as like historical accuracy. It might be apocryphal, but one of my favorite stories was that Prester John was like a mistranslation or like a telephone game basically of Genghis Khan, because Genghis Khan at the time was the one who was messing up the Muslim world, and that was kind of my impetus. Is like I'm not exactly on the left anymore. I'm not exactly on the right. So I'm criticizing. I ended up not necessarily going that direction, but criticizing aspects of the left that frustrated me. So that was kind of my impetus of that. And I wrote about the heterodox moment because at the time it felt like politics and culture were very strongly bifurcated and very strongly in their lanes. I was hoping to see a heterodox moment where we kind of break out of that, but just kind of being frustrated with our current political and cultural moment as well, where yes, it's a heterodox moment. Things have changed culturally and politically. I don't necessarily know if it's in a good direction. I was talking with Lurpa about this before. Like she was in the Occupy movement. I was in a tertiary way as well as DSA, and kind of feeling like how I see things going with the right now. Potentially could be a similar thing where there's this amount of energy that wants to make fundamental changes that gets kind of sublimated and subverted by some kind of surface level cultural changes that don't like really make deep changes systematically. So that was kind of I don't know. It was something I wrote mostly in one go, just because I was frustrated and I didn't know if I was going to release it. So I don't know. Maybe it could be better reasoned or something like that. But it was my second most popular piece that I've done so far. So some people seem to resonate with it.
Right now it's got 119 likes and 30 restacks. That's pretty good. Yeah, anyway, I really liked it. Like, people loved that. I love that post. It was a good one.
Yeah, I'm glad. Thank you.
It largely defined the mood, is what I felt like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of frustration at the moment across the board right now. So,
yeah.
It's so interesting because just earlier today I was talking to Jeff Gizia about that exact same process, where I felt like for me, my disillusionment with the left, and I was in some very far left spaces and more of like alternative culture, queer settings, LGBT, trans, satanic spaces, so on and so forth. That was like my milieu. And I was also very drawn to like the Chapo Trap House guys and Michael Brooks and that whole world as well.
Dirtbag left, kind of.
Yeah, dirtbag left kind of stuff, but
Yeah.
also very gay, very queer. But then a lot of it started to fall apart for me in a big way in 2020. There was something about 2020 that made it kind of start to collapse. I think because I started to see a lot of the excesses of people, of my colleagues, a lot of the excesses of people I respected. Not so much on the dirtbag left at that point, but on in the right in the wider left and in a lot of LGBT spaces. And so, but then what really kind of accelerated my ultimate departure from calling myself a leftist. I'm still of the left, right? I'm still I would say center left, but I've definitely journeyed to closer to the center, and I'm much less comfortable with aligning myself with any political label like right or left. Instead, I'm just like, let's just go through the issues and I will tell you what I think about them. That's
Yeah, that's pretty much where I'm at too.
yeah, that's
Yeah,
much
same. That's
right.
Like it's too
yeah,
convoluted right now in the middle of this like shift or whatever to really call yourself
yeah.
much of anything unless you're super dedicated
Well,
to,
especially because
one
things
side.
are shifting so quickly, politically, culturally, the material conditions. I've had at least one article that I was starting to write, and between the time that I started to write and when I would have finished it, things changed so much. Like, okay, well, this isn't relevant anymore. I can't publish this,
Yeah, I have so
So,
many of those too.
Yeah,
but I'm
totally.
curious, Stephen. Like, what was there any? Because everybody talks about, quote unquote, your red pilling moment. I think that's become kind of a charged term.
Yes.
Were there any specific moments, or was it just like the
Yeah.
milieu of it? Because I had like a handful of things, but really basically like 2012 in a lot of different ways. And I kind of like similar for me, I would exist in some of those same spaces, like DSA. Like I was slightly too young for Occupy when it happened. I was like had just graduated high school, so I like was around it, but like a little bit too young for it. But like some of the queer spaces and these lefty spaces, and it just like the long and short of it, it felt like it became like, how would I put this, like HRified, and it's like, is this really about making actual change, or are you like trying to get a job in the next administration?
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Quick thing. Before I just want to answer Cinema Tim Shell's question. Xanadu, the name of the mansion from Citizen Kane. Wouldn't know. I haven't seen it, but it was supposedly Genghis Khan's palace, and that's what I named it after. Because that's my kind of theme. But go ahead. I just wanted to answer.
I'm trying to get, so my phone is so fucked right now. I've taped a wireless charger to it because the charge outlet doesn't work on my phone. So I've literally taped and it just stopped charging.
Great.
It's fine.
Oops.
I really wish there was a
Fine.
desktop version for this, but
Yeah, me too. I
that's
thought that there was. I thought they just announced it, but I might have misunderstood it because I was just sitting here waiting, like on my desktop for
yeah.
notification, and Stephen was
You
just
can,
waiting.
Way to go,
I'm like, oh
no.
shit.
okay, well, I might just have to hold my phone and make everyone seasick if y'all are okay with that.
I
We'll
think
live
I'll
with
be
it.
all right.
Okay. So the yeah, for lack of a better term, my red pill moment. I had been troubled for years, but I had been troubled for years by stuff that I was seeing, and a lot of stuff it was internal to different communities that I was part of, and just like, oh, I'm fundamentally different from the I have a fundamentally different set of values from what a lot of these people value. I value at a fundamental level free exchange of ideas and norms of discourse and upholding viewpoint diversity and basic kind of enlightenment liberal stuff. And really I started to realize, oh, there is a big rift between the philosophical liberals and whatever the fuck this other thing is. And I found myself feeling like I was the philosophical liberal, where while other people really this was deeper. It was deeper than politics. It was deep. It was philosophical. It was a fundamental difference in what it means to flourish. It was a fundamental difference in what it means to be um, a good citizen. And so I had been struggling with that for a long time, just feeling like there is a fundamental difference between my values and the values of the people that I'm around. So there was that, but the big moment that really just sealed the deal for me was October 7th. And because someone very close to me is Jewish. And so my partner is Jewish. And before the blood was even cold, watching the whole left, it felt like the whole leftist sphere explode in bloodlust. Now, what followed after that? Now, so I'm talking like the immediate 2 or 3 days afterwards.
Yeah.
Everything that followed that's a different story. And my reaction was I have never been more appalled in my life. Honestly, people I thought I loved and trusted were suddenly saying things that I could only call anti-Semitic. They were cheering violence, calling the children who had been murdered settler babies, and assuming that everyone who had been really saying that the deaths and the murder was justified. Now, my position then and my position now is criticize Israel by all means. It has committed war crimes. It has done horrific things. But when we cross into celebrating the death of innocents because of when we cross the boundary into celebrating the death of civilians in a really brutal way, um, that is what really that's what really fucked me up. And that I was like, I can't do this anymore. I cannot be around these people. I don't know if I can say that I am on the far left. It was truly it was an emotional response, and I could feel myself getting radicalized. It's like I could feel the shift happening inside of me, and that made me uncomfortable because I didn't want to get radicalized. I didn't want to get pulled into the right either, and I didn't want to get pulled into um, all of the different forms of radicalization that can result from this topic, right? In any direction politically, that can result from the Israeli and Palestinian conflict topic, like that shit can radicalize you in all different directions, and I didn't want to do that. So I felt like but I could feel it happening. And I was so disgusted and morally outraged by my colleagues on the left who were not demonstrating any humanity towards the horrific deaths of civilians. And by the way, I have the exact same disgust magnified towards people on the right who don't care about Gazan deaths, who are not appalled by the hideous bombings,
Yeah.
and so I was just disgusted by the lack of care and the lack of empathy. And before the blood was even cold, all of these anti-Israeli anti-Israeli protests that erupted across the world. That was my moment. And then my life rapidly fell apart afterwards, where Jonathan Rauch, the author of the Constitution of Knowledge, he's a friend of mine, and this was back when I had a podcast. And he was a listener, and he had been a guest for a while. And he's a centristy guy. He works at Brookings. He's a great guy. I recommend everyone read his work. But he heard me tell my sister in a podcast, and my sister is on the right. He heard me tell my sister, I don't know if I'm on the left anymore. And he reached out to me and was like, I want to interview you about your political journey. I was like, sure. He wanted to do it on my podcast, so he became the host, and he wanted to hear about my political journey from, like far left, just journeying closer and closer and closer to the center. And there's really no words to describe what happened in my social circle after that happened.
Really?
Yes. I have never been spoken to the way that I was spoken to after that podcast drop. For taking literally a few steps towards the center, for saying, for stepping away from self-identifying as being on the far left. I don't want to go into too many details because it does involve organizations that I was part of, and I can't talk much about the inner workings of these organizations, but I found myself receiving emails from people talking to me as if I was being radicalized to a cult.
Wow.
And I was told that Jonathan Rauch, the ultimate centrist, like the ultimate normie gay centrist, that I was being radicalized to a far right cult, and that I was being radicalized by Jonathan Rauch to the far right, and
Jesus.
all kinds of nonsense. And I found myself having to really defend myself against people who I loved and who I thought were my colleagues. And literally overnight, I lost my entire community overnight,
Oh,
because
wow.
That sucks.
and part of it was self-inflicted, because when I saw the reaction that I got, I was like, nope, fuck all of you, and I just pulled the plug, because I was like, this is unsustainable. But the side effect was I lost the community that I'd been building for 6 years. I had been a leader in this community and communities. I had poured time and energy, and most of my friends were gone overnight. So,
Wow.
um, um, yeah, that was my radicalization moment. That was my red pill moment, as you say.
That'll do it.
That
Yeah,
will
I was
do
gonna
it.
say that'll do it. Yeah.
Yeah, Brian says, seems like you extricated yourself from one. Yeah,
Yeah,
totally.
pretty much.
Yeah.
And it's been really refreshing to be on Substack. And actually, Substack was kind of part of my attempted rebrand to move away from the previous context that I had been in, and to try to do something new. And
I like that.
yeah, so Substack was like my rebrand. And
Interesting.
and it's just been very encouraging to be like, oh, I can actually find a new audience. Like,
Yeah.
I can rebuild this thing, which is basically what I've had to do. I can fucking rebuild this thing. Hello, Rachel Haywire. I can,
Hi, Rachel.
Yo.
And you know, I've gone through that several times. I've actually gone through several, you know, apocalypsi, and as a creator, and in terms of community, and then had to rebuild. You know, so I was a Christian writer for many years, um, and actually my earliest work was about reconciling homosexuality and Christianity and advocating for gay people in the church. And I eventually moved from conservative and kind of conservative Catholic to a progressive gay Christian, and that was a whole torching of communities as well. That was a whole burning of bridges that I didn't intend, and then I left Christianity altogether, um, and that caused a mass exodus of for a lot of my writing. And then I built my audience in the satanic world and the religious satanic world for 6 years, and I was a satanic content creator, and people, and now it's like I'm trying to move past that, and I'm trying to expand beyond it, but I'm actually finding that it's somewhat difficult because journalists still reach out to me trying to get
Oh.
comments on Satanism. YouTubers will still, you know, last year a gargantuan YouTuber used some of my work in a very critical and negative way to comment on Satanism, and so it's just like it's one of
Hmm.
those things that like will probably haunt me for a bit, but then a lot of that audience is gone now as well,
Yeah.
because I'm trying to expand religiously beyond Satanism, and so yeah, so now here we are doing crossword puzzles together.
That's quite the journey.
It is.
Yeah,
It is.
but yeah, but okay, so PJ, what would be your turning point?
Well, I can't say it was that dramatic, and I don't say dramatic punitively towards you, but because that's very, it's like, oh, you're being so dramatic. No, that is very dramatic in the like traditional
The
sense of the
literal
word.
sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But kind of a similar thing, and that's part of the reason why I reached out to you actually because I had a similar background where I grew up in the church and spoiler alert, I want to dig into this specifically when we do our solo podcast. But I feel like it's very interesting to see in like the queer community, or I didn't do Satanism personally, but really any of these leftist spaces, the amount of people who grew up religious um, is astounding in some ways, but in other ways, I think it kind of makes sense if you think about it, because a
Mm-hmm.
lot of these spaces I think are trying to recreate the community that comes with the church.
Yeah.
And that was kind of a lot of my journey. I would be in some of these spaces, DSA, what have you, um, and kind of the same thing where I, to a degree that I've drifted to the right, it's been because I have like some specific issues that for me are important, like labor rights, being anti-war, anti-imperialism, stuff like that. The whole thing with Israel Palestine. We don't have to get into the specifics, but yeah, kind of the same thing where it became very tribalistic and not about the issue itself, and just became very your team A or your team B. But I would be in some of these spaces and just seeing like the lack of effectiveness and how it became. I don't know. Like I quote I said the other day is like, supposedly I think it was like Camus or one of those guys said that the reason the Russian Revolution failed is that every single person in the Russian Revolution thought that they were going to be Napoleon, whereas in like the Bernie Sanders, leading up to the 2020 election, that DSA movement, like everybody was trying to be head of HR. Um, and it was just like very censorious and kind of flying in the face of what I thought, the left or liberalism, whatever you want to call it, was about. And I feel like my core values haven't changed. And we'll see what actually happens with this new administration, this new direction. if it actually does, end up, focusing more towards labor rights, being anti-war, stuff like that. Those are my values. I don't particularly care because I think a lot of the other stuff is cultural affectation. Like, I'll say I was adjacent to the LGBT world, and I'm more like, hey, do your thing. I feel like a lot of these things are cultural affectations, and people should be able to do what they want. And a lot of these other bigger questions are aside from that, like in a very practical, material way. I don't think, just because you are gay, you need to have, XYZ view on, say, socialized medicine or whatever.
Uh-huh.
I think it's like, for me personally, like, I think there should be some kind of option, but they don't necessarily follow it. And there are these camps that feel very inorganic and like they were kind of downstream from boomer culture wars that don't really have a lot of relevancy to the modern world. But between that and 2020 was very kind of the same thing to me, like red pill moment, if you want to call it that, where I was an essential worker. I did IT in the medical industry. I'll keep it at that. And like it was a very isolating experience being an essential worker. And having to travel for it because I had to travel around my state and fly around the country with the nature of my work. And seeing that juxtaposed with email job type people who were so because I'm like not even particularly like have strong feelings on COVID and that whole thing. But like it was very, very, how do I want to put it, authoritarian. And like, something as simple as like, the ivermectin thing. I don't think ivermectin cured COVID or anything, but something like saying it's a horse dewormer, which, that's like saying Viagra is a blood pressure medication. Like, okay, that's what it was developed for, but its actual application, like no person who is being serious would say that. Or, similar things to my experience in the DSA or like the George Floyd riot slash protest, however you want to put it, kind of the same thing. It was, as you're talking about the Israel Gaza thing, horrible thing that happened, but it was just became very hateful. And there was I don't want to, dox myself specifically, but where my parents lived, there were some pretty serious riots, like miles from where they lived. And it was just like no empathy. You either support this 100% unequivocally, you
Yeah.
can't criticize any aspect of it, um, or you're a racist, homophobic, throw whatever ist in the omni cause that it became. That kind of pushed me away from the more traditional left, I guess. Well, I mean, again, like this is maybe another conversation, but the American quote unquote left is not really left in the traditional sense. It's a very progressive, liberal, whatever you want to call it. So, and that's kind of brings us full circle. It's when I started talking about the beginning of why I started to write and the impetus behind my pseudonym, and my frustration with the left. And wherever I am now, I made friends with some people who are more conservative or right leaning. I don't agree with all of it, but I see where it's coming from in a way that maybe I wouldn't have years ago because I feel like I was definitely like, left culture warrior for a while up until 2020. Things kind of got away from me.
Yeah. What about you, Lurpa? Did you ever have a red pill moment?
It's hard to say if I had like one big one because what I've noticed looking through some old blogs, from years ago before Substack and looking through my live journal for like other essays I've written recently, I realize I've been like, I keep thinking that I was more of, I don't know, I don't want to say partisan, but like more, I was definitely a left-leaning culture warrior for a while. I annoyed the shit out of everybody on Facebook, like one of my cousins blocked me, my dad unfriended me, like,
Oh, wow.
Yeah, like a lot of
Good
people.
job.
I pissed everyone off. My mom even unfriended me for a minute. I was like, Mom, really? And then she refriended me. But the point is, I was annoying about it on the internet. But what I've noticed though is that I've always been like very skeptical of bits and pieces of these movements all the time. It seems like I was always trying to argue with people about it. So in some way, I've always just been on the left, but just very contrarian about it. And I feel like There are some moments. I think it was about 2010. It was just before Occupy started, when there was actually, I think it was 2011. I went to Netroots Nation. I don't know if you guys have heard of it. They still do it, but I don't hear about it anymore. At the time, it was a lot more popular. It was just like where liberals on the internet get together, and it's like a multi-day conference sort of thing, and you hear speakers and some politicians come and talk to you and stuff, and you meet up with other bloggers and Twitter people. And this was back in the earlier days of Twitter, and I was still on it, and well, I still am, but I was using it anyway. And they were holding it in Minneapolis, where I lived at the time, so I went, and it was super disappointing because I had just gotten back from Madison, Wisconsin, not too long before, and they had the Capitol occupation. So there was, like, if I remember correctly, yeah, it was just before Occupy, but yeah, they occupied the Madison Capitol. I don't know if you remember
I
that,
remember
but
that. Yeah, I was there. Little do we know, we could have even like been standing next to each other
maybe you're in
10,
one of my
15
like
years ago.
500 pictures because I was going
Mhm.
through those. But yeah,
I
I
was
took a
just
lot
a
of
wee lad
pictures.
at the time.
You were what? Oh, a wee
I was just
lad.
a wee lad at the time.
Yeah, you were young then. You were probably still in high school, weren't you?
Just like that was the year that I graduated high school or everything. Because also, I'm sorry to interrupt your story. Like the thing with collective bargaining rights for teachers and stuff. That
Yes,
was
that's
one of
what it
my
was.
first main things. But sorry, continue.
Yeah. Well, that was exactly it. I was really excited because at the time, so I was not employed at the time. I took some time off and I was mostly just blogging. It's kind of like what I'm doing right now, I guess. But I was like, well, I can go to Madison. I don't have anything to do. So I got two friends and we went to Madison and we joined the protests. And I was just like so energized by that. I thought it was amazing that they would do this. I had never personally heard of anyone occupying anything before. And little did I know, a few months later, I would go occupy a government building myself for a while.
Hmm.
But yeah, it was so energizing. And so like I just wanted to do more of that. And uh that's when Netroots Nation happened. I went to that, and that was what really disappointed me. That's because it was all, I was sort of getting disillusioned with Obama by that point. I voted for him and I was excited about him, but that's when I started to realize, like, they're all the same. The Democrats aren't all that much better. I mean, they make some decisions that I like more than the ones Republicans make, but for the most part, by and large, and I got into a brief Ron Paul moment during that time, but his views on abortion just turned me off. And so yeah, I don't know, Netroots Nation was exciting for a minute, but it turned out to just be more, I don't know, just very not grassroots, like astroturfed sort of Democrat stuff. It was all very fake, and I left just
Yeah.
annoyed, you know.
Hmm.
And then Occupy happened, and that. So I mean, I think it was like that Netroots Nation thing that kind of radicalized me against partisanship, like against like calling myself a Democrat or having any faith in them and believing that they were more truthful, because I think that they lie just as often as Republicans, just for their own, their
Mhm.
own purposes. And at the time, I was one of those people that thought that they were legitimately just better, just overall, like somehow we have one corrupt party and one non-corrupt party, but now I don't believe that
Mhm.
at all anymore. So yeah, I guess
That's
that
the
was
grit,
kind of the
bro.
moment. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Yeah, I mean, like I said earlier, I'm really at the point where, okay, first of all, one of the things that I've accepted about myself is that there are some things that I'm just not very smart about. I'm just not very well thought out or as
Hmm.
thorough as I want to be and like to be. And one of those things is politics. I'm
Hmm.
just not um a I think that I am good as a thinker and as a writer in in some specific areas. I think I do well writing about religion. I think I'm good at writing about philosophy, about doing personal essays, doing
Hmm.
being what I call professionally curious. Someone whose job it is to kind of be the fool
Hmm.
and explore topics with fresh eyes. I think I'm decent at that.
That's a good way to put it. Yeah.
What I'm not decent at is politics and
Hmm.
talking about politics and having a coherent view. And this is just something that I've accepted about myself. And so I've really withdrawn from talking about politics, or rather writing about it. I don't mind doing the occasional thing like this about it. I don't mind, talking about it live, but I've made a very deliberate choice to not write publicly
Mhm.
about this stuff because I'm just not good at it. I'm not smart when it comes
I
to
know
I'm
what
not
you mean.
well informed.
Hey, don't let that stop you as somebody who writes about politics but is not smart about you. Hey, brother, do your thing.
I like to generalize as much as possible so
Mhm.
that I don't end up like saying the wrong thing.
Mhm.
I want to say Jarlis's comment. He says, "I know I've complained in the past about Substack's badly done live notifications, but this is really cool, like a YouTube live stream, but with people you know." I agree. Like I thought that the lives might not be like all that awesome, but then Steven and I did the first one like 2 weeks ago or whatever, and yeah, I was like, that was
Right?
super fun, and people like participate and join in the conversation. It's a lot of fun. I actually really like it a lot.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Same.
no, this has been fun. Thanks again for inviting me.
Of
Yeah,
course.
And
thanks for
dramatic
being
face
here.
reveal.
Yeah.
So Lerpa, did you if you wrote an article this week, I didn't get a chance to read it. Did you release an article this week?
I did not release an article. I released an old poem from high school. And it was a very dramatic one. It was like from a creative writing class, which I've
I
been doing
did see that.
recently. Yeah, it was I've been doing that recently because I've been writing so many articles, but I have not finished a single one of them and it's driving me crazy. I cannot figure out how to finish like so many of them. But yeah, I work on like each one a little bit every day and then I just end up being like fuck it and I publish like something old because I found it and I'm feeling like emotional or something. So sorry subscribers. I'll be done with
Mhm.
all the high school poetry soon enough. But
I
but
love
yeah.
that. I love the high school poetry, but it
Yeah.
takes me back.
Mhm.
Remind me your age.
I am 41.
Okay, so you are
I
you're
graduated in 2001.
Mhm.
okay, so you're about 5 years older than me. So I'm 36, but it everything all of your posts are so nostalgic for me. I can almost hear the Smashing Pumpkins as I read them.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Good. I'm
And,
glad.
I've called
and
it like a millennial Americana before because that's what it feels like to me.
yes,
Yes,
exactly.
I love it.
It takes me back to high school when I was an undiagnosed bipolar twink.
Well, I'm glad. I'm glad I can do that.
Well, the piece that I wrote. But before we get to that, what what are the details of the angsty high school poem that you released?
Oh
So,
man,
sorry,
it
I'm gonna run to the
was
restroom real quick. I don't mean to interrupt, Lurp. I'll be right back.
okay.
Yep, you're
The the poem was so like the backstory of it was that so I write a lot about my very dramatic like relationships of the past, and this was one of them for the most part. So I had a big crush on this dude in 10th grade, and he was my best friend's brother, and he would not date me because he was friends with my ex-boyfriend, and so I was very upset. Finally, he stopped being friends with my ex-boyfriend. They had some falling out. I was dating some other guy, and he called me and like played me a Backstreet Boys song like over the phone because it was like the year 2000, and
nice.
and yeah, to tell me that like he would go out with me now because he's not friends with my ex anymore. And I was like, oh my God. So I broke up with the other guy, started going out with him. This guy I'd had a crush on forever. And then I go on this trip to North Carolina. I was living in Minnesota. No, I went to Wisconsin for like this church trip. Ended up falling for this guy from North Carolina.
Hey, my
And
my
that's your
And
state.
Wisconsin. This
And
is
Wisconsin.
a story
Yeah.
for both of us.
So yeah, I met this North Carolina guy in Wisconsin and totally fell for him. And then he ended. I wrote a story about this too, but and on the last day of this week long, like it was a church musicians camp, so it was like choir and handbells and orchestra and stuff. And I did choir and handbells. And on the last day, we did like a big concert and stuff. And he drove me back to our family's little cabin. It was like this whole commune of like Baptists or whatever. It was a very interesting place. And he drove us back in his stepdad's truck, and then he like sat me on like the truck bed, and I swear to God this was like a country song. So he kissed me like under the stars on the truck bed, And I was like, oh my gosh, it was so romantic. And then I'm like, oh my God, I have a boyfriend at home. And I started crying and crying and crying.
That's sweet.
And so yeah, I'm like 16 or whatever. And I go home and I see my boyfriend and he's like, so did you meet any guys? He was joking. And I was like, no. And then he's like, oh my God, you did. And then we broke up. And then I called the North Carolina guy and his brother or his dad. Someone was a pilot in the family. So he got buddy passes. And we were able to meet him at the gate because it was before 9/11. And he came to visit over my birthday, like just a few days later. And yeah, it was pretty amazing. And we actually went to go visit him a few months later as well. And then after that, I reconnected with that old ex-boyfriend, broke up with the North Carolina guy. So I decided a long distance relationship in high school was a great idea. But anyway, I broke up with him.
You were quite the heartbreaker back then, weren't you?
God, I was. It was terrible. So I broke up with him, and then I got back together with that other ex. So we dated for a few months. And then I met this other guy in creative writing class.
Oh, and I read that piece, and you sent me okay, I have to tell everyone, you sent me I won't describe what he looks like other than I see why you crushed on him.
Oh, are you talking about the Daniel picture that I sent you?
Yes.
Or are you talking? Okay, yeah. Yeah, I sent him a real picture of Daniel with his face because I only put in one of him from like the back and like, because, I don't want to show people's real faces. But yeah, he's like, show me. So I showed him. But yeah, I did describe him a little bit. Like he had long blonde hair. It was in a ponytail. It was nice. But yeah, Stephen got to see the real picture.
Yes, I'm honored.
PJ, I will, if you want, I will also DM it to you.
Yeah,
so that we're not left
out. My rating.
It's very 90s looking.
I'll put it this way: I very rarely buy, but I'll window shop in this store.
There we go.
Perfect. Well, you're in the right place then.
But I'll finish it up real quick.
Yes.
To make a very long story much shorter. So anyway, I broke up with that guy for the creative writing class guy. Now at this point, I'd broken up with this dude twice for other guys, and he was, understandably pretty pissed off. So he was like, I hope you marry this guy because like, to him, it was like, if you're going to do this to me twice, like he better be a great guy. He wasn't, he was awful. We only dated for like 6 months, but anyway, I felt really guilty about it. So I wrote this very tortured poetry about it, like about how I needed to punish myself for my sins and make blood flow from my pierced skin is what I said, which reminded me of Stephen's recent piece. So it kind of is a good segue because it reminded me that.
That's true.
I mean,
I read that poem and I had not even connected the dots.
Yeah, when I read it, I was like, oh my God, that's right. Like I had forgotten. Well, I'll wait until after your story to tell more of this story. But yeah, that's the backstory of my tortured little teenage poetry.
Meta Ronan, good, by the way.
Hi, Meta.
How's it going, Meta Ronan?
Hello, Meta Ronan. Oh,
look, it's game night in the restaurant. All right, listen here, you little shit.
Hey, you know what? You're like 5 years older than me, all right? Shut up.
Is Meta 5 years? Oh, wow. Okay. I will say, however, that Carolina boys, as long as they have all their teeth, are hot as fuck.
Right? I'm saying. And when he came to Minnesota, the girls were all over him. He's like, this does not happen back home. And I'm like, I'm telling you, the Southern accent and like the big boy Southern thing, like they were just all over him. It was nuts.
Slays me every time. As long as they have all their teeth, then it's like we're good to go.
I'll send you a picture of him back then too.
Please
after
do.
We're done.
Yeah, so my article this week, the main article was called Razor Blades and Testosterone, and it was about male self-injury and about my own history where I had a 10-year period where I was a pretty regular cutter from the age of 16 to 26. And it was just about what precipitated it, the experience, and most of all, the experience of being a man who does
that was interesting. I didn't know that it was primarily a female thing until I read that, actually.
Yeah. And
I heard that.
I have scoured the internet looking for any kind of male representation,
Yeah.
or any kind of commentary around men who cut and for men who cut. It is extremely rare, and actually, I've basically found none. I have to date, I have found one talk online from a man who used to cut. That's it. One.
Wow.
So
And
not
Well,
even
I
like
guess there's
male.
two on the internet now.
Yeah, I was
Goodness.
well,
going
yeah,
to say
no,
not
there's
even male specific talk, or as being a part of the conversation, because I feel
it's
like it's.
just as being part of the conversation, a guy
Mhm.
saying,
Oh, wow.
"But here's my story." Um, Not even male specific, just as a man saying, and so that really leaves a gap for guys who experience self-injury. And um Meta says, one of my high school friends did that. He was very troubled when I asked. He said, "Yeah, I do it. It's male. It makes me tougher." Yeah, so I've only known one other guy who self-injured, and I mean, this guy was fucked up, and he self-injured really badly. I remember one time he basically ripped the skin, just open wound,
Oh.
because he had basically like tattooed himself with a needle, but had just opened this wound, and he had
Oh.
scars all, and he was ripped as well, and so he was getting a lot of that rage out with working out, and then he was just covered in scars. I mean, he was a really fucked up guy.
I've seen that before as well. And as much as you want to talk about what with your experience, and I know at least one guy in high school who cut,
Mhm.
and it feels like it does have that macho angle where like you're just so, instead of, I don't say this like to, make fun of it, but like instead of punching a drywall, you're cutting yourself. It feels like it's that same impetus, if that makes sense.
It can be. I mean, it's an explosion inward that comes, I think, less from rage and more excruciating pain. And um and because it is seen, and the point that I make in the article is it's hard to square kind of and also let me back up. It looks like the numbers do actually bear out. The data does bear out that the majority of cutters are women. It is probably extremely underreported among men.
Yeah.
But it appears that of self-reported cutters, vast majority are women. But that's interesting to me because men take the cake for most likely to kill themselves, and that's the point that I make in the article is men are destroying themselves on an industrial scale. 80% of all suicides are men. Suicide is the number one killer of men under the age of, I think, 50 in the UK. It's the number one killer.
Wow.
And then so above homicide, above car wrecks, above lifestyle related diseases. And then I think once it tips above 50, then lifestyle related diseases take over. Um, and then it's number two in the United States for men under the age of 45. And so men are destroying themselves at an industrial scale. And it's really kind of hard for me to square those numbers with the absence of any kind of awareness or discourse or discussion about male self-injury. And maybe men just use more lethal means, maybe men self-destruct in other ways, maybe men don't self-destruct inward, maybe they self-destruct outward with drug abuse. There are a lot of explanations why, but surely it's worth talking about self-injury, right?
Mm-hmm.
In light of um how deadly um suicide is for men. And
Yeah.
so, I talk about in the piece, and also I wrote it. I'm feeling pretty good today, but this week has been not great. I'm coming out of a not great cycle. Um, and so writing for me tends to be um a way to turn that into art. Make it gives it a telos, it gives it a meaning. I can kind of take that raw material and make it into something. And so it had been a very, very, very hard month. January was a very difficult month. Um and I just found myself thinking about being a man who cuts, and being a man who still wants to. And that's the thing, is I describe it in the article as being like my oldest, like my first toxic ex. It's like
Yeah.
that ex, that opportunistic ex, he is always ready to move back in with you, moment's notice.
Hmm.
He's always the first to call when he sees on Facebook that shit's going bad for you. It's like, hey, I saw that shit's really hard for you. Can I do anything for you?
Hmm.
Dad X, right? That's what cutting is for me. And um yeah, so I poured a lot of my experience into that article. And it's hard to say what I think about how I feel about it. I feel there was a catharsis in writing it, and I'm glad I wrote it. Um I'm and the discussion on I feel like the discussion on masculinity and cutting, it was never really quite resolved in it,
Hmm.
because it um and it was really an attempt to just shine a light on the story of one man who has experienced this thing.
Yeah.
um and the response has been very interesting, because so last week's article was about men and problematic porn use.
Hmm.
And holy shit, did that article perform well. That thing blew the up, and people loved it and
Hmm.
brought in a ton of new subscribers, and it performed well above average. Um, and of course, that's because sex is a hot topic, and
And porn
everyone
is
wants
super
to
hot right now for sure as a topic.
super, but also people love stories about men in porn. People love those stories, and I
Hmm.
don't entirely know why. Um, but then, and people love stories of men overcoming a compulsion to porn, and and I can and but what I've noticed is that people are much, and this was what the whole article about porn was about, is people are much less interested in the inner lives of these men. They are
Yeah.
much less interested the in why men are self-medicating with porn overconsumption. So, meanwhile, this week's article has actually underperformed. That is okay. It, it is totally okay that that's the case. But it's made me, and I think part of the reason is because this article is just far more explicitly about male pain, about
Hmm.
male anguish, and male anguish that gets manifested in a kind of brutal and idiosyncratic and socially unacceptable way. Um, and so it's been interesting to think about that, and to maybe there's nothing there to think about. Maybe it's too anecdotal and there's not actually a there, but it has made me interested in how we talk about male suffering. Um,
Hmm.
so yeah, those are my extemporaneous thoughts about that article. I'm glad I wrote it. It was a
Yeah.
very hard piece to write.
I bet it was a very
Yeah, I
emotional
can
one. At
imagine.
least it was heavy for sure. I think it's good that you wrote it because I mean there are probably other men out there doing the same thing that you did before, looking for that sort of thing,
Yeah,
other experiences, and now there's an additional one out there. So
yeah, that was the
that is
goal.
good.
That is the hope.
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't had a chance to read that one yet. It's one of there's certain Substack articles like if it'll give me the option to like listen to it, I'll do that while I'm working. But certain ones like, okay, I feel like I need to sit down and read this one. But one thing that does strike me about that is something I was hitting on earlier about like what feels like a cool macho way of self-harming versus because I feel like I don't know if you dig into this. It's like, but you've kind of touched on it. That cutting is feminine coded, and that's something that like I feel like it's more. And this is not a moral judgment from me personally, but from what I see in society, there's more of a judgment around men cutting
Yeah.
versus women cutting.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, 'cause I feel like, and again, this is something I wrote about. One of the first things I wrote about was an article called "On the Masculine Urge to Die in a Suicidal Cavalry Charge," and kind of the TLDR is like that's if you're a man, that's like the best possible way you could go is like Custard's Last Charge, the Charge of the Light Brigade, Lord of the Rings, like to die, in a cool way, fending people off. And that's kind of something we touched on a little bit. Like for me, looking back on it, I was doing self harm. Like I was not getting a lot of sleep. Like, yep, 10, 12, 16 hours a day. I'll do it. I'll travel constantly, drinking insane amounts, and also, on prescription uppers. Like, really, that self harm, if you think about it, just
Totally.
the damage I was doing to my body. But like to me at the time, it's like, yeah, I'm going through it. I can, put in these, 12-hour days, and I maybe a roundabout point, but like the things that are like a socially acceptable way for a man to hurt himself, which can be kind of sexy and what is kind of looked down upon, because you could say like, I had a heroin addiction and I was able to pull through it, and I feel like that's you could if you're like you could say that at work, and that's something that's an accomplishment, a manly accomplishment. But if you're
Yes.
just like, yeah, I had a porn addiction, that's like, dude, keep that shit to yourself,
Or
Um,
I had a cutting addiction.
Either or, yeah.
And I've actually had that conversation because I was at work once, and a guy who is now like one of my best friends, we met at work, and he moved on, but we're still very, very close friends. It's like, oh my God, dude, where do you get those scars? Because if someone is in my vicinity and you're close to me, you will notice. And I have this pathological inability to lie. And I was just like, I was a cutter for 10 years. And he was like, oh my God, I'm so what? Like, and the having to suddenly navigate that holy shit, and that kind of break from a a socially masculine form of self-destruction is really interesting. And again, maybe I'm reading too much into all of this. Maybe the awkwardness there had nothing to do with masculine roles. Maybe that's all in here that I'm imposing on myself. Actually, maybe that isn't coming from other
I don't
people.
think you're wrong. I mean, on that note, Meta Ronan says Valhalla. I'm like, yeah, that's it's that masculine thing. Because I remember similarly, when I talked about that incident, like what really stopped me was I was like 30 years old. I had to go to the emergency room because I thought I was having a heart attack. Um, and I remember, and it turned out to be a panic attack, which um, it
Many
feels
such
very
cases.
similar. Yeah, many such cases. And there was a guy. He was like a friend of a friend, like very like more traditionally masculine. He was a mechanic. And I was like, yeah, it's a crazy year. I thought I had a heart attack. I was like, what, really? And then I was like, well, technically it was a panic attack. And then he like just tensed up. Like, oh well, okay, whatever. He didn't want to talk about it. Like if I was dying physically, awesome, that's metal, bro. But if I like stress myself out, um, and was basically on meth for 2 years. But I say panic attack, that's emotion, and that's gay.
Right.
Yeah, totally. And another very masculine form of self-harm is over exercise. And
I've heard that. Like it's almost like a male eating disorder thing. Like instead of being never
totally.
seeing yourself as skinny enough, you always see yourself as like small and weak.
Yes, and I know guys. I've known men who are, I mean, they take their shirt off and they are fucking ripped. And but they have given themselves stress fractures from overlifting. They are in incredible amounts of pain. And in private, one guy in particular, and this guy was just an Adonis. I mean, he was shredded. And he was like, when I look in the mirror, all I see are that my arms are too small.
Wow.
That is all I see. And so, and I've known guys to cross country runners who would overrun, um, run through injuries, and then really fuck themselves up that way. Um, so yeah, they're definitely male coded forms of self injury, but then I haven't actually vocalized this yet. So this is an opportunity to vocalize something that came up while I was writing the article, but I haven't explored in writing yet. Where one of the things that one of the clashes that I have with a lot of anti-porn activists, um, and there are several people on Substack who I've clashed with over this, where I wrote a piece last week about porn that could be construed as negative towards porn, and but I'm not. I am. I think porn is a complex medium, and uh, I think whether porn is healthy and productive and good for someone will depend on the individual, their season in life, their stage of development, and the type of porn they're watching and the context that they're watching it in. It is so complex. And so there's a lot of horrific stuff in porn, but there's also and people hear me say that and they cheer and they're like, "Yay, Steven, Steven's anti-porn." No, I'm not anti-porn. I support anyone if they want to quit, but I also support people if they are trying to just moderate their use or be more mindful in their use or using porn or trying to diversify their sexual palette, and porn is part of that, right? So people hear that and I think they really shut down, especially the anti-porn people. um, and I had a kind of a moment of empathy because let me see if I can even articulate this. Porn for that guy, we all know that guy who started watching it when he was 11 and it really fucked him up. We all know that guy and watched a ton of it. He feels bad about it. He feels gross about it. He blames it for a lot of dysfunction in his life. And so for him, porn is just bad. It is just all bad. And then someone like me comes along and says, well, actually, yes, I acknowledge that there's downsides, but there are also upsides. I started to imagine what would it be like if someone came along and said, well, there are actually also upsides to self-mutilation. And I imagine that that's a similar emotion. The emotion that I experienced when I thought that to myself, is I can imagine the emotion that a lot of the anti-porn people have when someone like me comes along and says it's more complicated. But then that kind of took me down an interesting thought pattern, or down an interesting trail of there are occasions when self-harm is productive, and when it is socially sanctioned. And I can't remember if it was you, Lerpa, or someone else who commented saying, what about tattooing?
Yeah, it was someone else, but I had agreed like that sounds like it actually could be a good outlet in a way.
working out when you're not, cracking your own bones. Like I think I've experienced this myself, where I've talked to people who are much more into it. Like, man, I've had a really shitty day. I just need to go work out for a bit. And you tire yourself out.
Mhm.
And technically, you're not like going to that length, but it's in the ballpark.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Caleb just commented, honestly, I'd love to see studies along these lines in BDSM scenes.
Yeah, I was thinking that too. I mean, that's
Ooh,
probably a
yeah,
big
that's a
way
whole
that a
nother.
lot.
That's another can of worms to open. But
Yeah.
I'll go there if you guys want. But as a slight side note to that, or I guess related, when you talked about like somebody saying like, oh well, you could cut in a way that is productive. It depends on like what level you're into it, right? Because I know like with something like alcohol, right? There are people for whom it destroys their life, and if they could be sober for years and they have one drink and they're back into it. And there's people like I overdid it, I need to scale back, and they're good. And you can sometimes have a drink, like it's you can't give the same advice to the same people, But
Yeah.
Exactly.
I could step up for 1 second. I just wanted to leave on that note. But yeah, it does seem like it's degrees of difference rather than kind.
Totally.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
definitely.
Meta says, calling Robert Stark. Don't fucking dare.
We don't need any more oral sex discourse on Substack. Although I didn't realize that he was also talking about BDSM. Of course he is, though. I mean,
Yeah.
it doesn't surprise me. But
Yeah. No, I mean we should probably, we could talk about BDSM for forever. It's a fascinating subject.
Mhm.
But yeah, no, I thinking about positive ways that self-injury becomes a positive thing. And for me, as someone with a history of self-injury, that was actually an incredibly provocative thought experiment, and realizing
Yeah.
when I get tattoos, I'm self-injuring, but
Mhm.
I'm self-injuring in a way that is socially sanctioned, cathartic, and it turns into art, right?
Yeah.
And
Oh, the other thing I remembered was the TENS machine. That's what someone had
yeah,
suggested. The thing that like kind of shocks your muscles. Sorry, but that was the
yes,
other thing.
yes, that's right, that's right. Yeah, so it was just it was an interesting it was an interesting trail to go down, and but also like ritual scarification
Oh, yeah.
in some settings, like in tribal settings, that's self-harm. And
Mhm.
so yeah, all kinds of this article has opened a really interesting horizon for me of thinking about ways that injury can be positive. When before writing the article, I had honestly had a much more monochromatic view of injury.
Mhm.
It is all bad, but
Yeah.
writing the article kind of expanded my horizons a bit.
It's interesting how writing can actually, you can learn things when you write, when you think that you're doing the opposite. You're like, telling other people things, but you end up learning a lot yourself. That's one thing
Yeah,
that's nice
it,
about writing.
Well, that's kind of what's good about even something like therapy, right? Like, I have mixed view on talk therapy as a concept, but I think the value that's definitely there that I've seen is talking things out loud, and people talk
Mhm.
about journaling in the same way.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah, definitely. I know that I get a lot of benefit from therapy myself just because saying things out loud to like a third party that's like objective, is very helpful to me.
Mhm.
Also, the writer Emmett Renson, he's a leftist Catholic guy. He wrote a beautiful book last year, published a wonderful book last year called The Complications, and it is about bipolar with psychotic features, and he has it bad. I mean, he has horrific experiences,
Mm.
but he was talking about the benefits of therapy, and he said the benefit of a therapist is that they are bound by law to not leak the DMs.
Exactly.
That's not a bad idea.
Yeah, and we I I think that is a big part of therapy that goes unremarked upon, which is we live in such a leaky culture. We
Hmm.
live in a culture where anyone can share the screenshots.
Yep.
Anyone
Mhm.
can record the call. we've all seen, the big leaks on YouTube where some YouTube star says something incendiary on a Discord chat and then it gets leaked. So we live in a kind of a leaky culture where none of us quite feel secure. And I think one of the appeals of therapy is that they are literally bound by law to not leak the DM.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that
Right.
is my favorite part.
Yep.
It
Yeah.
makes me think of and Stephen, I know you said you part of one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you is because you're also the child of a pastor. My dad was a pastor, and I feel like this is something I'm trying to work out how to talk about and write about. That in traditional societies, that the role that therapist kind of fills now is something that a priest would be able to fulfill. Like you're not bound by law, but it's your code to God, and you're a neutral third party that exists, and you have an agreed upon set of values that you're judging from. And that's something that I saw a lot. Like my dad was like a therapist to half the church as well because you kind of have to
Yeah.
be.
Yeah.
Right.
And not only that, I really can't think of another social role that's like what a minister does. I mean, in a Christian setting, it's a minister. Jewish setting, it's the rabbi, so on and so forth. But there's something really lost in a secular society when we don't have that person whose one job is to care for the community. That is literally their job, and you do not
Mm-hmm.
pay them for that. They get paid to care for the community. You can put money in the donation basket if you want, but that's such an important role that I don't think people feel until there's a big crisis, until
Yeah.
there's a death, right? Until there's a death, or until there's a birth, or until there's a marriage, or until there's something that until there's something that a requires someone who knows how to do ritual
Yeah.
and knows how to connect with tradition and knows how to navigate the legal system. Even
Mm-hmm.
ministers know how to do marriage, ministers know what to do with a death. These are all, and both of my parents are ministers actually, and they both do this is the role that they provide. And we just don't have that in a secular society. And we are vesting a lot of that role in a therapist, but a therapist just can't fulfill that role.
Yeah,
I
that's true.
A therapist cannot be the community caretaker.
Mm-hmm.
um the therapist can't be the person who you go and confess to for free, um and who will baptize your children, and who will be
Mm-hmm.
there for the death of your mother. And
Yeah.
there's that role is just so important, and I really believe that something meaningful is lost. And when I was in the satanic world, we were trying to fulfill that in a non-theistic sense. I wouldn't say we're secular, but we were
Yeah.
non-theistic. And so I was head of ministry in TST, or not head of ministry. I was part of the ordination council, which was the governing body of the body of ministers in TST. And a lot of what ministry was focusing on was creating a clergy that could provide that to people who needed it. Um, but yeah, it's something that's really missing,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
therapy just will not fill that gap.
It won't. It's funny when you said that the first time I thought of something my therapist had told me. He said, just so you know, like if I see you downtown or something, I'm not going to acknowledge you unless you acknowledge me first.
Yep.
And I was like, oh, okay. He's like, I like to tell people that so that they don't get their feelings hurt. But like, if I do that, then, I might out you in some way as, like it's a HIPAA thing. I'm like, I
Yes.
gotcha. And I'm like, I'm the kind of person though, if I see you downtown, I'll be like, hey, that's my therapist. Like I would be that person. So He's like, well, if you did that, I would say hi. But so it's kind of funny, I go in there and I pay him, and then he's not allowed to talk to me in public, so it's exactly like the opposite of
Yeah.
what you're
Mhm.
saying. You know what I mean? It's just
We
kind of funny.
also just need friends. And I'm
Yes.
so and like I am someone who needs therapy. Like
Yeah.
I'm someone who has benefited enormously from therapy in part so that someone can track me. So,
Yeah, that makes sense.
and so if I start to get paranoid or if I start to have a really bad episode, I have a professional,
Hmm.
and also my partner is a therapist,
Oh,
and he does great work, and and so I'm not anti-therapy. I just feel like we're vesting as a culture too much into it.
Yeah.
hmm.
And so often there's a conversation that either I have been part of or I've overheard, which goes like this. Person A says, "Man, I am struggling so much with XYZ." And then person B says, "Okay, do you have a therapist?" Person A says, "Yeah." Person B says, "Oh, okay, awesome." As if that fixes the problem,
Mhm.
Yeah.
right?
Well, I've often said that telling somebody to go to therapy is like the liberal version of go to church, which
Hmm.
Yeah.
you know, some like on one level I get it. Like people can trauma dump on you in ways that aren't appropriate. But that having been said, I feel like we're just kind of socialized to be very uncomfortable with these things. Like to a certain degree, like I think if you're going through something, you should be able to talk to your friends and family,
Yeah.
but not
And it
everybody
shouldn't.
has it.
Right. And when you do, I feel like we're moving away from this thing. Like we're not supposed to burden our friends with our troubles. And
Yeah.
like you said, I mean, I get it. Like there's some trauma dumping that's inappropriate or that's overwhelming or whatever, but by and large, I mean, we should be caring for each other. That's sort of the point of
Mhm.
these
Yeah.
relationships, that we
Well,
have with our community.
yeah, I'm
And
not. I'm becoming more open to it, but I'm not currently religious right now. But I
mm,
think that's what's partially of what is valuable about the concept of prayer, because
yeah.
Mhm.
there's a confessional nature to, and this is something I really miss, that you have this small to medium sized community where people are aware to some degree of what's going on in your life. You say, "Hey, I'm going through this. Can the congregation pray for this?" Um, and I think that's something that is kind of missed. And I don't know if it's a capitalist thing or people being more isolated. But I remember this is one of those things that, like, to slightly backtrack, that really bothered me that I saw much more in left spaces is like the pay me for my emotional labor thing. Like,
Yes, yes.
dude, you're
Hated
my
that.
friend. I'm going through a hard
Right.
time. Like, I want to tell you about this, and you can do the same when you're going through a hard time. Like, I'm not trying to get
Hmm.
therapy out of you, but you
Right.
know,
That's just how
as I
friendship
said,
works, man.
Yes.
yeah, right. Imagine that. That's what I think is valuable about these spaces, which is why. And Steven, I don't know how you feel about it. Like, even in my like the height of my atheist phase, like I couldn't get on board with certain things. Like, oh, they should tax the churches. I'm like, sure, for Joel Olstein or some of these mega churches, fair enough. But like most churches are pretty small and community oriented and do a lot
Yeah.
of stuff in the community, and I could never sign off completely because while there's a lot of negative that you could say about the church and the community that surrounds it, and I'm sure we'll get into that when we do our solo podcast,
Yeah.
there's good things that I just can't ignore and totally dismiss, that like social
Yeah.
Yeah.
functions that these things provide
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
that you
Yeah,
don't
the
get
whole
anywhere.
tax. I used to be a tax the churches person, but it was that argument that someone made a number of years ago that made me rethink it because and the reason that I was on that tax the church thing for a while was just because of how political they were being at the time. And
Mhm.
even if they are, I mean, yeah, I don't know, I agree with you. I don't think it's really appropriate for,
Mhm.
your average church.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So,
maybe if it's above a certain income level, that's one thing. But
yeah.
like my family, like that was our income was part of what you would get through offerings.
Yeah.
But a lot of it
Yep.
was like reinvested in the community. So
I know that my mom, like, we had our little tiny church when I was born in Missouri, and we lived there for 3 years before we moved up to Minnesota. And she told me that, her radiator had died and they couldn't afford to fix it. And the church bought her a radiator and installed it for her. So, that's one of the things that they do with the tithes and all that as well, with the collection plate stuff. And so, yeah, it was, one of those
we would
things.
do every year we would do drives for school supplies. We'd do like a big cookout that was open to the it was for the church, but it was open to the public if you wanted a free meal. And this was not in like a high income area, so I don't know. And that's another thing. Like, I don't want to backtrack too much. That when I was in these more left leaning spaces, there's a lot of moves to create this. There's all this talk about like mutual aid and stuff, but at the end of the
Yeah.
day, like, you didn't see these groups very often, like volunteering at a soup kitchen or volunteering in the community. So that's something I would have liked to see more.
And you know who is doing that is the churches. It's the Catholic. It's also the Black churches. One of the most interesting experiences growing up is my mom was the pastor of an all-Black church here in North Carolina. And so I was like the one teeny tiny flamboyantly gay white boy.
That's
And
amazing.
yeah, and just the social engagement, religious
Sorry, I
community.
was plugging my phone in.
Oh, you're good. The social engagement of these churches is kept communities alive. And if you look at the civil rights movement, Black churches were central to that.
Yeah. Well,
It
civil rights in general in the United States,
Yes.
that's one thing, again, that I feel is overrated. Like, obviously, like, gay rights are a little bit more complicated, but it is more complicated if you looked into it. But like everything from like the original, like abolitionism was a deeply religious movement.
Yes. Yeah. And so, I consider myself a deeply religious person. And my Satanism was very misunderstood as a troll, and I in a lot of ways I brought it on myself, and I wrote 2 articles on my Substack about Satanism that people can go back and look at. But for me, it was a religious identity, and so this is the first year of my life. So I left Satanism early last year. I was just finally like, it's time. Just I loved the community. I love the people, but I felt like for a myriad of reasons, it was time for me to expand religiously and philosophically beyond it. And so this has been the first year, literally in my entire life, that I'm religiously unaffiliated. I was a Christian. I converted straight from Christianity to Satanism, to organized Satanism. Um, and And as much as people say it's a troll, and it often is, and adolescent, which it often is, and cringe, which it indeed often is, for a lot of people, especially like me, it was also very, very sincere religious expression. And I know lifelong Satanists. I know Satanists who go all the way back to Anton LaVey Church of Satan days.
Yeah.
Just life. I know satanic families, people that have who were born into Satanism, and their parents were LaVeyans, and then their kids are Satanists. Like, it's a very weird underworld, right? It's a very weird subculture. It has been extremely hard to be religiously unaffiliated.
Yeah. Have you thought of anything that you want to explore next?
Well, so I think it's important that I be a nun, an NONE, for a while. Like, I think that's actually, I think it's important for me to not rush
That makes
into
sense.
It
another.
sounds like, sorry, spiritually speaking, you're like a serial monogamist who is finally out of a relationship. You just need to be
Yes.
single for a little. You just need to
Yeah.
focus on yourself spiritually.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, I met my, I married my high school sweetheart or whatever, and then we broke, and then I cheated on her and and dated that badass satanic guy, and then I broke up with him, and it's like for the first time in my life,
Mhm.
I'm single. Yeah.
Mhm.
And um and it is extremely hard. There are going without religious community is I wrote an article about this called "The Weird Travails of a Post-Satanist." I think it was one of my last articles of 2024, and I think the way I described it is it's just everything is harder. Ev- Without that religious community, everything is harder. It's like there's this little edge of stress, of
Yeah.
background ambient stress, because where previously you were like, I got this whole tribe of people. They get me, I get them. They will help me financially if I need help. They will come through for me if I need help. They will, and they have, and they did. That's suddenly gone. And the
Mhm.
net effect of that is everything is harder. Paying your bills is harder. Going to work is harder. Managing little life bullshit is harder.
Yeah.
There's this real, it's so um subtle, it's almost imperceptible, but there's this real feeling of, without a religious community, especially when you've had religious community your entire life, there's this real sense of, okay, I'm on my own,
Mhm.
and in a way that I wasn't before, and that makes managing all of life's little hardships that much harder.
Yeah.
um and so I get why. I really understand why. And in so much of the research, church attendance boosts happiness and it boosts resilience. And it is like going to church is just one of those net positive things to do. Totally understand why. The challenge that we're in is, okay, what do we do then with the secular, uh, kind of atheistic or non-theistic or agnostic people like us, right?
Yeah.
Or like me, at least. I don't know where the two of
Mhm.
you are.
I would say agnostic for me
Yeah,
as well.
Yeah, at best agnostic.
yeah. And so, you know, there are all of these formative aspects of religion that I think are super good for humanity
Hmm.
that are hard to opt into if someone is like us.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, it's hard to re-enchant yourself after you've been taken out of that because that's been my experience where
Yeah.
I feel like I didn't
Yes.
go to the degree that you did, but I feel like in a lot of ways, much of my social life, even including some stack to a degree, is finding your tribe and trying to recreate that community that I had religiously.
Hmm.
And I don't know about you, but for me, like to a certain degree, if you've seen, I don't want to say, I don't want it to sound dismissive or like I'm being vulgar, but like, how the sausage is made of the church on the back end,
Yep.
it it's really hard to be on the other side of the stage, if that makes sense. Um,
Totally.
as far as religious conviction goes, like I have, um, I guess you could say a personal spirituality, but it's really hard to go back and like, having seen that and existed in that world in that capacity because there's a difference between being a part of the congregation versus a part of the church as far as like operationally and facilities wise, and spiritually. And to be able to go back to that, it's I think there's a reason, as you probably know, the stereotype is like a pastor's kid will either that's their whole life for the rest of their life, or they go really fucking hard in the other direction. And
I
I
would
went really fucking hard in the other direction personally.
I wouldn't know anything about going really
No,
fucking
not at all.
direction.
So,
I mean,
No, all the
I
well,
Satanists I knew came from super hardcore religious families. And I think that that's actually why I only went to one meeting and didn't really fit. I wouldn't say I didn't fit in. Everyone was nice, but I didn't continue. I didn't join. You know what I
yeah,
mean? Because that just wasn't my upbringing. I didn't feel the same pull. I
yeah,
appreciated what they did politically, and I appreciated what they provided for like the formerly religious people. But yeah,
Mhm.
for me, it just wasn't like I didn't feel the same huge need for it like so many other people that were involved that I knew, because I knew a ton of people in the Minneapolis one. And like I had said before, that was how I met my husband, because I was going to help with like an event with some mutual friends that TST was putting on in Minneapolis, and
Yeah.
it fell through. But yeah, that's how we met, because we were gonna join the event together. But yeah,
Mhm.
I just went to one meeting and I was like, this is cool, but yeah, I'm not.
Yeah. Not
I
my
don't know.
vibe.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
No.
Mhm.
and I guess I'm glad. I'm glad I wasn't raised in that sort of thing, so I didn't have to like what do they call it? Something destructing or
Deconstruct.
deconstruction, like something like that. When you leave your religion, I never really had a leave your religion moment. I was just very casually Christian because
Yeah.
my family was, and they weren't strict about
Mhm.
it. So
Yeah.
and
I'm. There's a lot to be jealous. I mean, Jesus, my upbringing was so fanatically religious. I was born on the mission field in Taiwan.
ooh,
I my father is a religious leader. I won't say his name, because he didn't sign up to be talked about by me. At some point, I want to do something public with my dad. I want to like do a podcast with him,
you
or
should.
get him on a live thing like this, and I will out that
Mhm.
specific man as my father. Um,
You should do
but
that. Walt has interviewed his parents. It's always fun to listen to that, especially considering who your dad is, and we don't
yeah,
know.
My dad is actually on Substack, funnily enough.
Oh, cool.
what's that?
So my dad is on Substack, funnily enough.
Does
Well,
he write?
I signed my
Mhm.
father up for my Substack. I asked him, "Do you want to? Do you want to read my stuff?" And he said, "Sure." And I told him, and this is what I tell all of my friends: is I deliberately do not look at who is in my email list,
Same.
because I don't want that to shape how I write, because it is inevitable that I will piss you off.
Exactly.
Smart.
And
I
you
also do
will,
not look.
yeah, do not look. Um, and so there, and I told him, just so you know, I will write about things that you won't like. And he was like, "That's fine." And so I gave him a paid a comp subscription. But oh
Mhm.
my God, where was I going with this? I wanted to ask, what denomination were you, Prester?
Me?
Yeah.
I think it was technically non-denominational, but they also went by Church of Christ.
Okay. Interesting. Is Church of Christ charismatic?
Yeah, I would say so.
Okay. Like
It
Is
comes from
charismatic, just out of curiosity, is that the ones that like speak in tongues and stuff, or is that
so
something else?
so charismatic means they embrace the gifts of the Spirit. They aren't cessationists. So cessationism is the belief that the gifts of the Spirit stopped with the closing of the canon. Closing of the canon meaning the conclusion of the scriptures.
Okay.
Um, the
So
the the completion of the writing of the scriptures was an end of an era in which the Holy Spirit moved in his people. They spoke in tongues, they prophesied, they did healing, etc., etc. So a lot of Protestants, John Calvin, Calvinists or cessationists, they believed that the gifts of the Spirit, what are called the gifts of the Spirit in Scripture, things like prophecy, raising the dead, physical healing, casting out demons, all that crazy fucking shit that we see in the New Testament, that actually stopped with the conclusion of the writing of the Bible. Um, and so John Calvin believed that. I think Martin Luther might have believed that, but yeah, a lot of Protestants believe that. Charismatics do not believe that. They
so is
believe
that like Mormons? They still think that God, like that there are still prophets, or that there are still that God is still speaking to them.
they believe that God is still speaking to them. Charismatics, I mean, it depends on things got boring when the Bible was done, is what Baylor Heath said. Yes, that is
Mhm.
basically the premise of cessationism. So um yeah, I mean, there wouldn't be prophets with the biblical authority today that, say, the prophet Isaiah had, because most charismatics still adhere to some form of prima or soli scriptura, which means scripture first or scripture alone,
Okay.
as their source of inspiration, as in terms of what's true. But they do still believe, and they believe that, at least with the charismaticism that I was raised with, that whatever prophecy is given, or healing, or message, or supernatural event, that it would have to be aligned and tested against the Bible, which of course gets very fucking tricky, because the Bible is huge and complicated and ambivalent and nuanced and all of that stuff. So yeah. So you were raised Church of Christ. So did they do any speaking in tongues and that kind of stuff?
No, not exactly. I guess I wasn't aware of that, the way you put it,
I think
but
I'm
it was related to it.
I
No
think
speaking in tongues,
Church
but
of Christ with Church of God. Church of God is definitely charismatic. Church of Christ might not be.
no, it's more, I believe, from the Southern Baptist tradition. And if you want, I'll DM you. I don't want to dox myself that specifically, but my family is like a medium big deal in like the Southern Baptist community.
Okay.
It came from my great grandfather, for example, even was like a big tent revival preacher in like the 20s. Um, so it came from that tradition, but it was very much like scripture alone, as you said. That was kind of the whole thing. Where like it was even a major, not schism exactly, but debate in my church growing up. Like if you can have instruments in church, or even as much as like, we had people who would sing and like beatbox with the singing and do like vocal bass, like an a cappella thing. Like that was a big deal in my church growing up. So if that
Yep.
tells you anything about the world that I come from.
Fascinating. Yeah. No, I'm fascinated by all of this stuff. In another world, I'm a religious studies scholar. That all of this stuff is so interesting to me.
Yeah.
Well, we've been going for over 2.5 hours.
We have, I suppose.
Thank you for watching those who did. We appreciate it.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
We absolutely do.
Yeah. And by the way, Prester John, Substack will give you a draft for this video. You're welcome to post it on your...
And they'll give you lots of clips, which is fun too. They actually do a pretty good job generating the clips.
Yeah,
that's cool. Thank you. AI, very cool.
And if you want to post this on your Substack, please feel free to. Just be sure to at me and Lerpa.
Yeah, for sure.
And I will probably do the same either tonight or tomorrow. But
thanks for having me. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for being the first guest. It was great.
Thank you for being the first guest to Crosswords and Discourse. And thank you, everyone, for watching us instead of the Super Bowl.
Yeah, that was pretty amazing. I'm impressed.
Yeah, thanks for those who did.
Way to be nerds, everyone. I love it.
Exactly. All right. Have a good night.
Bye, everyone.